Alright, and we're back again, and now we're going to be going ahead and getting into the combat aspects of things. So I guess we'll start with, like, more or less the first one.
Yeah, DMC1 combat.
Yeah, I mean, it's relatively simple by the standards of, like, what came afterwards. You know, obviously, like, the games that followed it, but it still had very tight controls. It's kind of interesting how, like, it was one of the it's not like it's unusual to hear of games where, like, a protagonist can use, like, two different types of weapons at once. It kind of laid a lot of the groundwork for a lot of things to come later. Delaying your inputs, or, like, staggering inputs between button presses, because you had, like, your 3-hit combos and stuff, and if you do, like, slight timing variations within those, you can, do different moves. It definitely was one of the first to actually get rid of, like, the whole kind of just free-flowing systems that we've seen a lot at that point, with things like Dynasty Warriors, things of that nature, and, like, having, like, lock-on and whatnot kind of opened up the ability to input commands kind of like a fighting game almost. So, like, a lot of the groundwork was kind of just set with the first DMC. There's not, like, a lot of different weapons. There's actually only two, but, I'd argue that they made use of all those weapons. The whole game's very well balanced around those two. That said, I wouldn't say that Devil Trigger has as much of a it does have an impact, obviously, but I don't think it reached, like, the heights of, like, ladder games where it was almost like its own kind of skill set. It wasn't just like a power boost, you know what I'm saying, or opened up, like, a few extra moves or whatever, like it was in the first one. The ladder games tended to add a lot more mechanical depth to the Devil Triggers,
Yeah, more than anything, I think with the Devil Trigger and DMC1, all it did was just open up certain move options that you purchased, and just probably one of the few exceptions was non-flinching in certain health regen.
Yeah, which is more or less somewhat of a staple in the series at that point too, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of, like not being able to get staggered. Obviously, we're just talking kind of like baseline. Once you get to, like, the higher difficulties, obviously things change across all the games, but a lot of the foundations for the series was kind of laid out in this one, and really hasn't changed much since then, for better or for worse. It's always been, like, kind of tweaks, to the overall formula they came up with.
Yeah, the combat in DMC1 it's not, obviously, since it's the first game, it's not expansive in terms of just having this insane combo counter and variation moves. It's just for what's there. There's enough to play with.
There's enough to play with, and they're also just all useful in their own way. So. So that's always cool. Like, even the most expensive thing, which would be Inferno, which is pretty situational. It's like a ground pound type move. That for example, it still serves its purpose. Like, it's just it's a risk reward thing where it's like, hey, do you want to give up a lot of your use up all these Devil Trigger runes in order to do a lot of damage or whatnot, like flat damage? Or crowd clearing. So, like I said, it's the start, but it's definitely not bad. I feel like, even having played it fairly recently, I would say that not through the whole game, but I was playing through the game again, and it still holds up pretty well. A little rigid, but nothing like that keeps me from being like, this is too dated.
Yeah, I'd say about, like, and then if we want to just talk about gunplay for a minute, maybe in Ivory, I mean, a lot of people that just, which is Dante's dual handguns, and a lot of people, like, if you're kind of new to it, they play it, they play the guns, and they do their job. But once you unlock the shotgun, if you're new, a lot of people just tend to go to the shotgun simply because of the fact where they're like, oh, well, you know, it's a shotgun, it does more damage. Well, it does, but sometimes your regular handguns, the way the series works, I think, is, and you know, you can correct me if I'm wrong here on this, but the way it seems to me, especially with the handguns, is that they're kind of more or less used in juggle mechanics and certain other attributes, like, you know, if an enemy has a move that has a ground attack, then you're standing on. A lot of times, the handguns, they can delay you while you're shooting from touching the ground.
Yeah, I mean, there's like little nuances like that. Like I feel like with the handguns in the first one in particular, since you're bringing it up, it's like they're obviously not meant to be powerful like that. They're mainly meant for maintaining your stylish meter. And yeah, like the thing with those handguns is I feel like the death for them is kind of underplayed a lot of times in the first game in particular, just because, you know, people forget there's nuances like being able to actually charge your guns and stuff like that in the first game, and that goes a long way, being able to do like double triggered shots, you know, because they actually build up your combo counter unlike regular shots. It doesn't seem like much, but it is a huge nuance to the game, not just in terms of damage, but actually getting S ranks and stuff like that at the end of missions. It's definitely crucial in a lot of fights where you do tend to lean more into firearms than you would your sword, you know, your melee stuff. Griffin is a good example of a fight that like heavily relies on your pistols. It's actually one of the best options you can use during those fights. And yeah, that's kind of like what I'm kind of what there is really just is to what there is to the handguns for the most part. You know, there's not like too much depth to them, but there's enough mechanical depth there to kind of give you uses for all situations, and they will be useful all the way up until, you know, the hardest difficulty in the game. It's just their uses tend to their efficiency and usefulness vary between difficulties. You're not going to need to use these kind of techniques as much on lower difficulties, but higher difficulties, they actually, or in certain specific ways you want to play the game, yeah, it's definitely useful.
But, yeah, because oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm just saying, like, the first game, I'd say the first game alone is probably one of the few games where the few in the series anyway, where the guns actually have a very, you know, uses for specific areas or enemies and locale, you know, because in the first one they do tend to borrow some more Resident Evil elements where they have you swimming underwater, and so you get a needle gun, which you're able to shoot at enemies underwater, because you know, even the game options will tell you that you can't use specific guns underwater. You know, you even get access to a grenade launcher, which, you know, it does do damage to enemies, but it's very slow. You know, the recoil and everything. And then you have, what is it? Remember the Nightmare Beta?
But back to that grenade launcher, things like that though is offset by techniques like roll canceling, which, you know, help you shoot the thing faster. In fact, like, grenade launcher used to not be a weapon I used to use a lot. I always thought kind of like the fact that you can use the grenade launcher to kind of just shoot faster. I didn't really think much of it as a kid, because it's like I didn't, you know roll canceling was like a thing necessarily. But yeah, it's very effective. Like, you can use it quite a bit. Like grenade launcher roll canceling is extremely powerful in that game. Very much so, especially if you're fighting like blades and stuff like that. Hell, even frosts. Yeah, very, very useful. Very, very useful.
Yeah, because I think, what is it? Once we get to the later half of the series, you know, a lot of guns, they don't vary too much, but a lot of times the new elements in which they'll bring is when they introduce new weapons, or, you know, they'll have obviously, when we talked about 3, style changing. Gunslinger will offer different attributes and variations for weapons that are to come.
Yeah, DMC 1 also don't have like weapon swapping, which comes out later in the series, but it does tend to. But I will say that like the game's really well balanced and really well made it for its limitations, and I think the limitations are deliberate. It's not just a matter of let's throw in as many moves as we can, you know, or like as many weapons as we can, which I can appreciate. I mean, yeah, I would say like Nightmare Beta and stuff like that, or like the needle gun are obviously like situational weapons, but like they still have their use, you know?
Yeah.
But
Right.
like, huh? What's up?
I'm just agreeing. I'm saying, oh yeah.
Yeah. And like, I mean, that said, DMC 1's combat's pretty simple. It works. No wasted space. But that said, going on to like DMC 2, man, like, you want to talk about downgrades. I mean, I'll say this, for disclosure, this is the lowest point of the series in terms of almost everything outside of Dante's design. And the music. This game's, when it comes to the combat in this game, I mean, fuck, where do you even start with this thing? It just, the moment you pick it up, you already know something's wrong. It feels heavy, it's heavy and floaty at the same time. It don't make no sense, like, everything's kind of weightless, but like,
it really doesn't.
It doesn't, dude. It's one of those things where you have to like just play it for yourself and understand just how weird it feels. Like it's
almost like, it's almost like they're fighting underwater or something's going on here. Like heck, even in terms of like airplay and air gunplay, it's like, man, something just don't seem right.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. Like, I mean, if there's one thing I will say, like, they kept pretty, that sounds good into is like the sound effects for the guns and stuff. Like, I think like the guns sound really powerful and stuff. Like it does sound like really good, but dude, like nothing has impacted that game. Speaking of guns in that game, holy shit, are they broken, dude? Like, I mean, dude, like melee to me, that game really doesn't understand any aspect of what made the combat system click in that first game, whether it be through the style system that's just basically broken in that game. I don't even to this day, I still really don't understand like exactly what it's gauging off of. It seems like it gives me more stylish points off of dodging things more often than not. There's times where like the sword just doesn't seem to like give me much at all of an increase. I can't even tell if it's like even reading these attacks because my meter just never goes up. Firearms are just overpowered in this game, which it doesn't make any sense because like it's not meant to be that way. It's meant to maintain combos, not to kill things. But you can kill things outright in this game. Like, I mean, there are literally, I mean, you don't have to look far on typing DerpMayCry 2 on YouTube, I'm sure, before you find 20 million videos about, you know, oh look, you don't even have to move to fight bosses in this game. Yeah, we fucking know, dickheads. Like, we get it. You can fight Plutonian without moving on normal. We get that. And even on Dante Must Die, you really don't. But I'm just saying, like, it really does show a grave misunderstanding of what made that first game click. Even if it was, like, a troubled development. It's one of those things where it's like some of this stuff is going off the beaten path and doesn't build off of anything the first one laid out. Aside from the fact that it's an action game where you can use a sword and a gun and you can juggle people with the guns. You know? Like, it's super strange. But
not to mention that a lot of enemies in the game and even bosses, quite a few bosses in particular, they tend to stay, you know, a lot of them tend to have you know, ranged attacks or you know, projectiles they can shoot at you, and it's kind of like take Arius for example. It's like there's almost no point in even bothering trying to run up and hit him all the time. You might as well just sit back and just keep shooting even while he teleports.
Yeah, the AI isn't very particularly interesting. Yeah, it seems like it's funny too because they completely... I'm not going to sit here and say that the first one actually had aerial combat, because it actually didn't.
Yeah.
But this one tries to introduce aspects of aerial combat, but this comes back to the general feel of controlling Dante. He is so floaty, dude, and like, there's no sense of like actual like control over like what you're always doing. Because here's a good example for you. There's like hidden combos on the ground that the game doesn't even care to explain to you, whether it be in the manual or in the game, that involve you flicking the stick in like tapping it like back and forth or something like that and pressing a button. They have like inputs, like unique inputs, and so a lot of people are probably not going to even end up finding this stuff, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not only different from what you expect out of the original, because there are no delay combos, like delayed button press combos anymore. They chose it for like a direction based. But dude, once you start dabbling into that part of the system, you'll realize like none of this stuff's good. It's really strange. Like, you know, he's got like a 5-piece combo that was actually really, really good in the first game. Oh, dude, it's dick cheese in this game, dude. It's not good.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
The swords. There are 3 different swords in the game, and they're all the same. They just vary in different lengths. Like, I swear to God, I don't even think there's a power difference, even though this game has 3 different melee weapons, where they already removed one from the last game, like a fist weapon. Yeah, it's just like they don't. None of these swords make a difference in damage or anything like that. And if they do, I don't give a fuck. Like, they don't make enough of a difference. Like, I promise anybody that plays that game that if you choose to play them harder difficulties, just play like with Merciless, which is the sword with the longest length. Because I'm gonna tell you straight up now, there ain't no difference between Rebellion and Vendetta. There ain't. Like, actually, between any of them, really. Just pick what looks cool to you, I guess. Because, fuck, there's really no difference between them, which is really unfortunate. You'd think, like, at least they'd have some different, like, looking strings or animations or something. No.
Well, actually, no. Since I had replayed DMC2 recently, Merciless does do less damage, but that's what I'm just kind of like at that point. It's like, just use Rebellion. Like, again, sticking to your point, there's no point in using any other ones. I mean, Merciless does reach. It just does less damage. I mean,
but that damage loss and even the length differences is so negligible. That's why I'm just like, what is even the point in arguing whether which sword's actually useful and isn't as useful? I don't know. It's so weird. It's like, there's not a difference. I think this is ultimately the problem with it. There is no variation between any of those weapons. Just pick a skin.
Yeah.
To his credit, is the one that kind of laid the groundwork for the style system that we will be talking about in 3. And, you know, it lays the groundwork for... It actually introduces, like, a proper dodge button, which... that may or may not be a good or bad thing for people. Dodging has kind of always been, like, a finicky aspect. Everybody that plays DerpMayCry, like, competently... they know that like jumping is far more effective because jumping gives you iframes. Iframes, for those unfamiliar with it, it's invincibility frames, moments when you can't get hit. So jumps provide that. Anyway, you get invincibility frames on the startup of your jump, so it don't even matter. Like, you don't use actual dodging, and they introduced it in 2, but I mean, yeah, it gets us through levels faster. You know what I'm saying? That's about it. You can move through the level faster than running.
Do you want to talk about Lucia?
Well, I mean, there's other things to talk about, like the Devil Heart system, where you can like introducing the idea of customizing your own Devil trigger. It's a cool idea, but the things that they chose to let you customize were things that were basically like, well, this is Devil Trigger. You're just slicing off aspects of Devil Trigger to make us pick and choose between what attribute we want. And what I mean by that is like, do you want the health regen? Well, that should come with Devil Trigger because it's a risk-reward mechanic anyway. Do you want to do more damage? That's the fucking point of going into Devil Trigger, man, to do more damage. So why do I have to like invest like an entire slot in it? Like,
it's like, yeah, your character has wings, but do you want to equip this thing to make them fly? It's like, I don't understand.
That to me is like a yes and no thing. It is funny enough because I was like, well, Ifrit couldn't fly, so that's fair. Like they wanted, but there was like I said, compounded with the other things that you had to choose and pick between. I was just like, okay, you guys clearly didn't know what you were doing or what you wanted this system to be. Because like you see things like Chrono Heart, which is like the time freeze thing, kind of like the Bangle of Time from the first game, or Quicksilver in the latter games. That's an interesting concept to actually have as part of like your customizable Devil Trigger. You know, you stop time temporarily or something like that. That's cool. But baseline features that come with Devil Trigger in every other game prior and after, that's stupid. Like they shouldn't have just started chopping this mechanic down by its like by its benefits. You get what I'm saying? And then making you like kind of have to pick and choose between those benefits, because the mechanic itself was supposed to be like a finite resource anyway. It's not something you're always just going to be popping it into a room. You know, you pop into a room, activate it, and then you do it for the next room. No, you had to like build up for it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really bizarre. But I guess we could talk a little bit about Lucia. I mean, it's the first time they introduced like a second playable character, and yeah, it's fucking terrible. I mean, if they couldn't get the main character right, there was no way they were going to get the side character right. And man, they really didn't put any effort into making her an interesting character, unfortunately, like to play. Whether it be, and it's weird because a lot of her problems are exacerbated by like poor stage design, coupled with the fact that the game itself is bland in terms of the gameplay. So like, yeah, it's weird, man. And she has like less range than Dante, so she ends up in situations where she's not able to like cope with things at the range that would be comfortable for those characters. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's a situation of this game, and you know, we're gonna talk about another game that pretty much does this, but I think it's a situation of with this game, her specifically, she's just not really designed well for the game. It's like, you know, she can do things, but yeah, but it's like in terms of who you'd rather play, it's like you're better off just playing Dante because he has everything else.
And I will also say that like one thing that adds to Lucia's blandness is the sound design. They did not put any effort into making her moves feel impactful. Like, you know,
not at all.
Because them throwing knives, I mean, you might as well have been chucking paper airplanes at a brick wall, dude. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's what it sounds like. It don't have no impact whatsoever. I'm just like, all right, like, I'm not gonna lie.
Sounds like you're taking one of them Swiffer dusters and just patting it around. It's just going, you know. That's about it, man.
I mean, I'm not gonna front. DMC2 so bad. I am like just waiting to talk about DMC3 now.
Yeah, people ready to move on to 3.
I mean,
there's not much else we can say about 2. It's just it's a terrible game, and we're trying to let people know, like, okay, well, this is what are all the reasons and issues with it. But man, it's just when we talk about it and then think about it, it's like, man, it's like you really just don't even want to talk about the game. It's kind of like, can it just be acknowledged that this was a failure from the get-go?
I mean, there's almost no redeeming qualities. What? Oh, cool, you laid the fucking pavement down so, like, somebody else can build the house. Cool!
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, no.
Not even the framework, just the pavement. Here's the ground.
So it's just like, God, dude. Like, I mean, because the thing was, the foundation of the game was made before it, and they ruined it.
Yeah.
And then what it did bring to the table, it didn't even flesh out. The following game had to flesh them out. So, that said, moving on to DMC3, this here is kind of like what I'd like to call the Tekken 5 of the DerpMayCry franchise, where every other game that came before it don't even fucking matter no more. This is like the game that basically every other game after it is following. Like, this is the baseline. And, yeah, absolutely, for good reason. DerpMayCry 3 was surprising in its jump from 1 and 2. Especially 2. 2 was such a train wreck, but considering where we came from with 1, it's like, you are now actually doing a lot of things that are actually in the cutscenes now. You're actually able to do a lot of that stuff, which I think is pretty sick. You know, one of the earliest things that you can do that you'll see in a cutscene is see Dante surfing on the back of a dude, shooting the gun, shooting his gun, spinning around, like shooting everybody in the room. You can actually do that in the game, which I thought was
first
really
mission.
sweet. Literally the first
mission you can do it.
And like,
first cutscene you see, first mission you do.
so, you know, I really do think that that was like, that kind of set the groundwork for what was to come for the rest of the game, because not only was this the game that introduced like the style system, which, you know, Trickster, which is the mobility based style, Swordmaster, which is your melee based style, Gunslinger being your ranged, and Royal Guard, which is a defensive based one. It's based around parrying and throwing that back into people's faces, literally taking back, absorbing their power and throwing it back at them. And man,
not an easy feat, because that carries over to each game. It's like, it's not an easy feat, but once you master it, man, I mean, you're pretty much, you got the game unlocked. That's it. Nothing can touch you.
Yeah, it's a very bizarre. It's not even bizarre. It's definitely like the epitome of like easy to understand, hard to master. Because it's not like it takes a rocket scientist to understand what Royal Guard is and how it functions. But putting it into practice is very difficult. But those that do, like you said, master it, I mean, it does actually break that game in a big way. I've never learned to master it. That's why I was just like, fuck it, I have to come up with my own way, which I'll get into. But yeah, man, you know, delay-based combos, timing-based combos, stuff like that were brought back. Got new weapons. In fact, this is the first time in the series where you can actually, weapon swapping wasn't 2, but come on now. But, you know,
it started in 2, but this is really where like it actually all comes into play.
It mattered because you actually got different weapons.
Because this is the thing. This is the thing we have to like. This is the thing we have to like really separate here. In 2, weapon swapping was introduced, and yes, you could jump through each of your guns or each of your swords. But the thing was, it didn't offer any sort of variety whatsoever. It did nothing. It's just, you got to switch, I guess, if you felt like switching. At least in 3, when you actually have weapon switching, it offers a whole new game.
Playstyle, pretty much,
it's a whole new game, because it's like each weapon and each sword and gun offers its own variation of combo, combos, properties, damage, infliction, just you name it. Like, it's just a whole new ballpark at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you get, and this is also where, like, the series actually straight up, like, doesn't even try to, like, hide its Mega Man influences at all. Obviously Dante's always had the red coat, but this is also the game, like we said earlier, that it was the game that introduced Virgil, Devil in the blue coat. I mean, if you can't see the Mega Man Zero parallels, man, with the side character basically being more popular than the main dude, there's a lot of parallels. Even like when you meet bosses now.
I'm gonna say is go back and look at that box. See the part where it says Capcom? Alright. It should be good.
But I mean, even just like beating bosses is the way you get weapons now, like new weapons. That's absolutely a Mega Man trope. Yeah, like this is definitely where they started to become very Mega Man. Even like when it comes to like fighting enemies, I've never noticed that enemies had like unique passive properties or weaknesses or whatnot. Like, for example, Beowulf is a light-based boss or demon or whatever you want to call him. So you want to use something that's more dark aligned. So using like Dante's Sword Rebellion, for example, actually is more effective against him than actually using Beowulf, which you can use to cheese a lot of bosses and enemies in that game. It's really interesting that they chose to go with that kind of design, like borrow a lot more from Mega Man.
Yeah.
So, which is really interesting, dude. Like, I just don't. It's not really like something that I would consider to be part of DMC's identity, but it's interesting to see that DerpMayCry borrowed that from another series, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's cool because DMC 3 really doesn't like strip back on anything. It seems like it took the ideas from the last two games and tried to refine it into something else, something new. And I think that's really what it comes down to. I would say that DMC 3 is an extremely experimental game, but it paid off in a lot of ways. Because they did try a lot of new things.
Yeah, they tried a lot of new things, and I mean, you know, another thing we keep in mind is that, you know, some people that are more experienced with it, for some people it might be their first game, but this is a game where you pick a style and you just run with it the entire mission. You cannot switch on the fly like later games.
Or its own damn re-release that recently came out on the Switch. Yeah, like those weren't original features of its original or special edition releases. Yeah,
special edition release didn't have that either. But I mean, it's just even still though, for the game itself, just having one style, it's like you can get a lot of mileage. I mean, if when it comes to the Switch version, honestly, like I've tried it, and I mean, it plays great like a dream, but I also look at it and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of overkill, but it's enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun for what it is, but it's like, I mean, because I haven't messed around with it on Switch, but I have messed around before in the past, not like recently or anything. The PC mod for Style Switch.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not like it. I won't say that it takes away from the game, but it does like shoot the difficulty in the foot a lot of times, because I don't feel like they were really building the game around you having all four styles.
No.
But at the same time, I'm also like one of those folks that's kind of like, well, if you don't like the fact that you can switch styles on the fly like that, then just don't use it.
Yeah.
If you're like a purist about it, but like, I mean, dude, have fun with the fucking game first and foremost.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like that to me is like negligible. Like that, it might have broken the balance of the game, but if you really wanted to, you could choose not to use it. But I think the convenience of being able to switch styles whenever, like, sometimes I just want to use like a few gunslinger moves, but too bad gunslinger sucks most of the time for me to actually be like, yeah, I think I'm willing to sacrifice all this mobility with Trickster or this air combo ability just so Speial can have the ricochet shot, which is really good, but I'm not going to sacrifice that all the time, you know?
Yeah, and on top of that, it's like I don't even want to sacrifice, a devil arm, because I mean that was the thing in this game. You can only switch between two weapons and two guns.
Yep.
Like that's another thing, because that's the thing you have to think about. It's like, okay, well, what devil arms do you want to use? You know, and just make sure that it counts. And then the same goes for the firearms as well. I mean, like you said, the Spiral's good, but I really don't even want to bother using it because I could get more mileage out of using something else, even if it does less damage.
And at the end of the day, I would say it's a testament to the game. Like that you can have so much, have it be so broken yet be so varied at the same time, and how it can be broken. 3 also introduced Virgil.
Yeah, special edition.
You know, finally as a playable character. Look, man, I don't think that even Capcom themselves said that they were surprised and taken aback by like how well people took to Virgil. but because of that, I feel like now they've gotten to that point where they've exploited it, and this is the game that started it. And he was definitely stronger than his younger brother, you know? Like, this is the game that kind of established Virgil is, this guy's broken.
A powerhouse.
He is broken.
He's a force to be reckoned with, for sure.
And, I mean, since Devil May Cry 3, dude, like, I mean, even up until 2020, this dude's still hurting people's fucking feelings, dude, by being just so broken. It's kind of crazy. Like, especially because he has such a simplistic moveset compared to Dante, but I also feel like that's kind of the reason why people took a liking to him. He's actually doesn't sacrifice any of the death Dante has, but also much easier to understand.
Yeah.
Because he only has one style, he only has 3 weapons, which that's what makes him unique too. He actually he's the only character that has the ability to switch between all his weapons, but that's also because he only has 3. But he gets Beowulf, he gets Force Edge from the first game, which functions like Rebellion, and of course like his trademark Yamato. And yeah, I mean, dude replaces the gun with summon swords. I mean, dude, the shit he does with it, it's like, oh man, I'm gonna protect myself with swords. I'm gonna surround them with swords. Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and just put a bunch of swords above their head and just have them drop down and hold them in place. Like, he's got a bunch of crazy moves, dude. Like, he's
it's an interesting ideology, seeing in terms of, like, I mean, obviously in terms of how both brothers play. It's like they both have different ways of using weapons. Like, honestly, I never really had that much respect for the Beowulf weapon until I saw Virgil just doing that off the wall shit, and I was like, okay, let me go back and see what else is going on here with Dante.
Man, I've always loved Beowulf because I was a huge fan of Ifrit, so like to see that come back was like a big thing for me. So that's the reason I've always loved it.
Oh yeah, I loved Ifrit, but the reason I never used Beowulf was just because of how ugly it looked. But Virgil made it work. Yeah, like this weird gray white, and I don't like on Dante it looks pretty horrible.
Yeah, it does.
But like on Virgil, he makes it work.
Yeah, it's silly. Like, yeah, Devil May Cry 3 is definitely like the game that kind of set the groundwork for a lot of. It's the Tekken 5 of the Devil May Cry series. It's like this game was not only successful, but it also like set all the foundations of the mechanics and what to come to expect going forward. And this is what they're going to be building off of, not so much the first game or the second game. And so, that said, guess you want to get into DMC 3? Or 4, I should say.
Yeah, let's talk DMC 4. This game, definitely. I mean, I guess I might be the one that takes more of the mic on this one, but DMC 4, you play as Nero. He's the new protagonist. We've established that before. But interesting with him is that he's introduced for new players, right? So I guess he's considered the DMC 1 equivalent of how Dante played back then. It's just, simpler moves, just easy to understand, but he's also very difficult to master, though. So it's like, for people that are experienced with the DMC franchise at this point, picking up Nero, it's like, once you get past a lot of his base stuff and upgrade him, he's got a bunch of stuff that's very, very complicated to. I wouldn't say complicated. It's just very tough to master. He only has one set of weapons. I mean, in DMC 1, obviously you get other weapons, but Nero is the character for the first time in the series where he really doesn't get anything else besides his sword, and his gun, and his Devilbringer, and again, talking about Devilbringer, we brought that up earlier when it comes to the story, but the Devilbringer is the big game changer with him. He's like, so I put it like this: it's like during that time in which games were coming out, which would be between 2008 to 2013. So DMC. It came out over here in 2008, and Nero's Devil Arm is the equivalent of quick time events in action games at the time. But what makes DMC4 so special is the fact that the game doesn't exactly tell you, oh, use Devil Trigger at this moment. You have to kind of figure that out on your own. And I mean, obviously, most people that have played it, it shouldn't be too hard to understand, because it's like when an enemy or boss is exhausted, you use your Devil Bringer to, do a lot of extra damage to them, and it's very neat. So Blue Rose is it's a
double barrel revolver.
Yeah, it's a I was about to say, it's like, how do you explain that? Double barrel revolver, and it shoots 2 shots at once. Obviously there's no ammo count in the game. You just keep shooting shit. It's there, you can charge it. It does quite a bit of damage, it can actually cause some enemies to flinch at certain things. His Red Queen, what it has is it's pretty much a motorcycle blade, which, because it has exhaust vents coming out of it. But the interesting thing about it is it has there's a move called Exceed, and once you upgrade it, you unlock the last move, which is called Max Act. So basically, what Exceed does is, anytime it gives you a rev mechanic. So whenever Nero's just doing whatever in combat, or just even outside of combat, you can sit there and, I believe, hold the left trigger, left or L2 button on PS4, left trigger on Xbox, whatever system you're playing on, it's a shoulder button.
Yeah.
So you hit it, and it causes your sword to rev, and when you rev it all the way, it'll charge the first exhaust. So when you max it out, you charge all 3 of them, and your sword will start glowing. Now, what that does is it actually causes a lot more damage, and it also builds your style meter. So yeah, keep in mind, a lot of this stuff, Red Queen and your Devil Bringer, are one of your biggest moves that will definitely raise your style meter a huge amount.
The thing with Nero too that's really interesting is how, like, despite him having, he's a character that doesn't suffer from mechanical death. He suffers from the lack of weapons.
Yeah.
In variety. That's like Nero's biggest problem, because like he's never really suffered from, in my opinion, from the, oh wow, there's not much to do with this character because he's boring to play. He's boring because he only has one sword and one gun, like you said,
Yeah.
And I think and I think that's kind of unfortunate, because it's like all the ingredients are there to really make him he feels like a fleshed out character. There's nothing about Nero that's inherently incomplete in terms of design, because he has like that nuance aspect that Dante has, like you said. Exceed as a mechanic, it brings a timing element to it, and also like a risk or like a reward mechanic to it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Because I mean, a lot of the moves and elements that he has, again, like you said, it does offer a timing. I mean, if you miss it, it's not a big deal. But when you do actually master how to get it, that's when you really start. And that's when you're really playing with fire, because you have things like like with his Exceed and his Max Act and all that. If you time it correctly while you're in the middle of hitting an enemy, basically you have to hit the Exceed button on top of at a well-timed hit, and it actually can cause the gun to fully charge up. So I mean, there's that aspect. Yeah, or I'm sorry, not the gun, the sword. Yeah, but it causes it to charge up, and that just saves you a lot of time, because now you can sit there and start really layering on the damage.
Yeah, and it changes like the property of moves and stuff like that. I would say like he definitely is the first character to actually truly have like air combat in the series as well. Like with Nero's introduction, you also get like a lot more air game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the game stopped being so grounded all the time. Because usually being in the air just more or less meant in prior titles that you're just going to be, being evasive.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's an offensive thing, and I think that's really interesting too, because Nero, a lot of his like playstyle kind of facilitates that, like the whole push and pull, or pulling himself towards things or bringing things in towards him, juggling his them standardizing like him having an air combo without needing like a style, because that's something that Dante has to still do, which we'll get to, but he actually still has to style switch just to do a basic air combo. And I feel like Nero separates himself in that regard just because it makes it easier to play him.
Yeah,
but it doesn't compromise depth, though.
Yeah, it doesn't. And one of the things I just find interesting is that a lot of times when it comes to his really advanced techniques, again, like the ones where it requires timing and precision, it does in a sense offer a sort of style switching play. It's like he doesn't have a style, but he's able to do some of the things Dante can do without having to switch in styles. Like, again, table hopper, which is basically a move where you time an enemy attack correctly. You can evade, and it'll actually cause him to do like a quick, semi-swift teleport. I mean, he just moves really incredibly fast. He's just able to swift around an enemy and avoid the hit, and you can put damage on. In a sense, that can be considered like Dante's Trickster, where he's able to just dash away around other enemies. And you even have elements of like obviously elements of like aerial raid from Swordmaster, where Nero has his sort of aerial raid combo, where just all it is instead of you just hitting another button to switch styles in the air, you're just delaying certain attack buttons and just keeping up the combo. But I guess, unless you have anything else to say, you want to just move on to Dante?
I mean, what is there to say about Dante other than this is the most complex fucking version of him they ever made, to the point where even me that's been sticking around for so long with this character, dude, just sticking around with this series, I should say, dude, between this dude having some of the weirdest weapons in the entire series, like up until this point. I mean, the weirdest that 3 probably got was maybe the guitar,
Yeah.
But this game, it's like, okay, here's a briefcase. It's a gun. I'm just like, all right. And then, and it has like transforming different states and stuff like that. So like, it's not. It's a weapon that has so much depth to it. That one weapon alone has so much depth to it before that once you add the gunslinger style to it, it basically becomes its own fucking play style. I think that's really the thing that's crazy about Dante in this game. If you're a person that wants to find more or less infinite depth with the character, like, you're just never going to get bored playing this dude because he just has so much going on. There's no contest. Like, Dante in DMC4 he's the real deal. But that said, I'd be surprised if most people actually stick around to actually give this character some time to do that, or if they can even learn it at all, because some of this stuff's really complex, dude. Because one of the things that you didn't mention with Nero was how this game actually introduces inertia. Just across the board, with just like in general how the game engine works. There's inertia, and it actually can play a big deal not only in the Nero style, but even more so with Dante, because a lot of the things that you're seeing in combo videos these days, whether it's Don't Greed or SSS Smoking Style, whether you're watching any of these cats play, they're using inertia as well as like cancel exploits in order to really make this character work. And I think that's what's kind of it's something you just have to kind of take with it. You get what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't necessarily call it a fault, but I will say that people really do have to understand why somebody might not gravitate towards some elements of this game because of the steep learning curve. Like, it's almost too steep, and it's almost endless it's almost like having an entrance to a place, but you have over 50 doors you can choose between, but none of them are correct and none of them are wrong, and it's really difficult to get into this character. Like, and they added a fifth style to him as well, you know?
Yeah, Dark Slayer style, which is
Virgil's.
Virgil's, but which I mean, you know, don't get it twisted. It's not exactly like Virgil's, where it's all Dante can do is just like the bare minimum of Dark Slayer style, like not too much else. Not like in 3 or heck even the Virgil in Special Edition 4. I mean, one of the things is and this is the thing I was ready to get to, was as far as the combat goes in DMC, it's phenomenal. It's great. Like, it's probably, you know, some of the most off the wall, in-depth combat that you'll play in a DMC game besides 5, which we'll get into. You know, like, it's just talking about this game before that one even existed. It's all over the place. But that said, one of the biggest peeves of this game is that it's just unfinished. Like we talked about earlier, it's that a lot of enemies were all designed with Nero in mind. In particular, when it comes to Dante, it's like, yes, he's got all this extra stuff and know-how and complication, but a lot of the enemies in the game just do not accommodate or, you know, just ignore that fact. It's just that some things that you're trying to do, and the thing is yeah, when you watch these guys play, Dongri and SS Smoke, you know, it's just, these guys have been playing it for such a long time. But at the same time, I'll also bring this up as an argument is, do you ever really see them playing on every mission? They're only really playing in certain missions or against bosses or whatnot. Well, they'll play against Bloody Palace, or, you know, dude, because I mean, you know, it's like, I'm not trying to take credit away from these guys. These guys are good at the game. They know what they're doing. But anyone that knows about DMC4, it's like, you're not gonna try doing any of those kinds of combos on specific missions, and there's a reason why. It's
dude. I mean, can we back up and just, man, look, I know you got into talking about this, but we have got to talk about that. Like, people need to stop sucking off BMC4 for its combat mechanics, when literally the only half of the combo videos we see are always on what is essentially the training stage now for that specific game.
Bloody Palace, or against who is it? Like Order of the Sword, certain Order of the Sword enemies against certain bosses. I mean, you know, it's just
they like set it up in a very specific scenario so you can actually do cool shit, because that game, for the most part, if you're playing it regularly, and I'm talking a regular person playing through, like, you know, Sons of Sparta, Dante Must Die, whatever, you're not doing all of that, dude. You're not gonna be doing all that cool shit.
It's not gonna happen.
Because those levels, like you said, are just, I mean, you know, you said that the enemies weren't accommodating for it. Those levels double down on that. Like,
the levels double down also, on it too.
Yeah, they double down on it. Like, because, like you said, DMC4 suffers a lot from it being obviously an incomplete game, but it's like the incomplete aspect of it it rears its head at different intervals, man. I wouldn't say it's a consistent thing through the game where I'm like, oh, well, this is clearly cut content, and that's, you know, every game has cut content. I'm sure even the previous games had cut, especially like 1 where it was literally, the whole game is cut content that got refurbished into another game. But that said, it's like, yeah, dude, like you said, one great example, Blitzes. That's a great example of an enemy that's just simply not designed for Dante to really fight.
No.
And then on top of, and this always compounded because the moments you do fight Blitzes in the story, what kind of areas do you fight him in? Some jank areas, man.
Yeah,
frankly.
Some really weird areas. Heck, Blitzes, you know, well, go ahead. What else you got to say about Blitzes?
Oh, just the fact that outside of its opening introduction, when you fight him alongside like the castle wall walkway type thing, when they first introduce him to you from Dante's perspective, I think that's the first time you actually fight them with Dante. But that's fine. Like, the introduction is fine, but the subsequent times you run into him, holy fuck, dude, the arenas they put you in are just like, it's
That's not even fair.
You either get too much space to where you're spending a lot of time chasing them or giving them a lot of places for them to actively come at you, or you're in an enclosed space where you're battling this camera. So like against a dude that's zippity doo dah Tasmanian deviling around, and it's like it's really, really bizarre, dude. Like that's why I can understand why half of these combo videos are made in controlled environments, as I like to say, because they're just the game. I feel like I can appreciate people being passionate about this game despite its shortcomings. That is not what I'm faulting people for, but I do think it gives a very misleading impression of what the game actually was and is. Because anybody playing DMC4 casually, because they're like, man, I saw these combo videos, the game's on sale or something, I want to pick this up, it looks sick, and I hear it's one of the best action games out there. Dude, you might not be getting that same game that everybody else has been playing, dude. Like,
yeah, exactly. And another enemy that I want to talk about that you never see any of them play is the plant type enemies. Because
man, you ain't wrong, dude. Them things, things.
Oh, you know what I'm about to. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, because look, check it. I mean, alone by themselves, they're not really harmless. But the thing is they don't offer really any sort of combo potential whatsoever. They just fling one direction. You can't do anything. But when you have them in an environment with other enemies, they will fuse and latch on to other enemies, and it ends up creating a whole new demon entirely. And one of the things that they do is, and it's super annoying, is that after a certain amount of damage they take, they will sit there and just do an auto swinging like by themselves. You cannot keep these guys in a combo. You can't. If you try keeping them in a combo, I guarantee you every time you're just gonna get hit. There's no there's a color scheme of when they're gonna do it. But I mean, come on now, like people aren't trying to just hit them 2 times, run them, do hit and run tactics all the time. You're playing DMC, you're trying to, show motherfuckers what you're about, show the style.
Yeah, and I know people try to argue that you can just, that's when you should switch to like range play, but it's like, dude, like.
Not when there's too many of them on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. Or like they have other enemies that have like their own completely different moveset compounded by that. Dude, that's a nightmare enemy, dude. That's
the problem, is that you have to. The thing is like, again, the game does not. It really doesn't think about the player in a lot of regards, especially when it comes to that enemy. Because whenever that type of ordeal happens in the game, it's almost impossible. I'm not gonna sit here and say you can't ever do it, but it's almost impossible whenever they just drop you in a scenario where you got like 3 types of demons over here, like say like 7 of them, and then they got the plant demons over here. One of them's gonna get hit by the other demon and form the new bladed type enemy. Like one of them is gonna get hit by that, and you're gonna have to deal with it. Like, and there's no amount of you just gotta keep switching up and blah blah. It's like, man, it's just whatever. Dante's got his style switching, sure, but it's pretty annoying, and it's very hard to deal with, especially when you're trying to go for a certain play or a certain style.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess, do we want to bring up the other characters that they introduced in Special Edition?
Well, actually, let me bring up Dante's weapons real quick. Just a brief mention.
Oh yeah.
The game doesn't suffer from recycleitis. It doesn't have that like issue of just recycling content from previous games. In fact, I will say one of the things I can praise it for is like Dante, for example, having new weapons and stuff that really haven't been seen prior to it. Like Lucifer, Pandora, things of that nature. So like, I don't think like the game's crime is a lack of originality. I just don't think like it was focus tested enough.
Yeah. I agree.
For lack of better words, or quality assurance tested, I guess you could say, because I just don't feel like the balance is all out of whack, and I feel like the conveyance of a lot of these new weapons and stuff are just, they're out there, dude. Like, nothing feels like actually practical outside of the
Yeah.
gauntlets. I think that's kind of his biggest issue. Like, it's like, man, all these are weird. Like, I think that's the only thing I ever walk away from feeling like when I play Dante in that game. This character is weird. And I feel like that lack of familiarity is kind of like, I don't know, it's off-putting.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, you're the one that brought it up a while ago, where they introduce all these characters or whatever, and the one of the worst parts that you can have in a game is where, you know, the particular character is the least played one because people just don't understand how to play him, or he's just too confusing.
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, because that's what surprises me too. It's like the second half of the game, it should be more fun because you're playing Dante and stuff, but then I found it very off-putting when I did first play, because I was like, I don't think this character is that fun to play, dude, and these levels aren't that fun to play either. Like, this sucks. Like, I thought playing Dante was gonna be like awesome, but it is arguably my least favorite part of Devil May Cry 4, sadly, as a result. But that said, like, I mean, with the special edition, they added 3 new characters, which is, of course, his brother Virgil again, Trish, and this isn't the first time she's actually playable. Actually, DMC2, she is playable as well as a hidden character, but she largely shared a lot of the same moveset as Dante, down to the way that she controls and stuff from Devil May Cry 1. But this is the first time she gets like her own moveset, and of course, this is the first time Lady's outright playable. Now, Lady, I'll say this, she is the gunslinger style taken to its most absolute extreme. I still think like this version of gunslinger is more fun than what we do end up seeing in Devil May Cry 5 personally, that's just me. But I think like the stuff that Lady has going on is really, really cool, as far as like making a dedicated character to just that one style. I wouldn't say that she's entirely like range centric. She's kind of like a more mid to long range. I would say more so than like close range. Because you don't want to like
Kalina and
yeah, exactly. Because you know she can use like the Kalina and her rocket launcher to like do melee attacks, but it's mainly like for like pushing people back kind of thing if they're too close or whatever it might be. But yeah, she's like kind of like a mid-range to long-range character, which I think is kind of interesting, especially because guns aren't really like the focus of Devil May Cry games. It's always been the melee, so having a character playstyle centered around that, it was fun, dude. It was a nice change of pace. Would I be mad if they never brought her back? No. Would I like to see her be playable in a future game? Sure, why not? But yeah, like, I think for what it is, just being a bonus, extra, you know, unexpected bonus character that we can play for the first time, I think she's great. But as far as like Trish goes, what a mixed bag, dude. Like, what a mixed bag. It's like I can't say that she's unoriginal, because that's not her sin. Her sin isn't the lack of originality. Her sin is just like she's really easy to pick up and play, and not a lot of like depth to it, and also not very good either. Compared, like, she doesn't excel at anything. Does that make sense? Like, there's nothing about her that makes me want to be like, because Lady, I can be like, oh, she's a character that's like gunslinger style, completely dedicated to it. That's interesting. Trish, what is she? An easy version of Dante. Well, we got Nero already.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's far more fucking interesting to play.
Yeah, I mean, I won't say that Trish isn't fun to play. I mean, because, you know, I mean,
she has her moments, absolutely.
Yeah, she has her moments. I mean, because it's fun, you know, messing around with her and watching her break dance when she's, you know, just capping on everybody. But yeah, I mean, again, like you said, it's just, you'd rather just play Nero, honestly, because, like, also Trish, she does less damage too. So it's like, there's like no, you know, all that flair and no bite, you know.
To me, I think it was such a missed opportunity to bring back elements of Alistair's moveset and Ifrit's moveset and really like flesh those out going forward. I feel like they could have done something with that and they just chose not to. I don't understand it. Hell, even like this is one thing that I thought was absolutely bizarre with Trish. She is presented as a flight, and you know, if you ever play Marvel vs. Capcom 3, for the audience, I'm speaking to the audience, but if y'all ever play Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Trish in that game is like a trap character, like a 8-way flight dash type character with that emphasizes traps and whatnot. I don't understand why none of that's utilized in that with her playstyle in DMC4. Like, she doesn't have like ground traps or any kind of like, you know what I'm saying? Because think of like, what if I did like an air combo, like, or did like a normal ground combo like you would with any other character, you know, high time, follow them up in the air. Imagine like putting like a seal on them where you hold them in place and you can like maintain that combo or something, or like activate like flight, even if it's like a few seconds or something. You get what I'm saying? Like, she can't do this outside of Devil Trigger, really. The whole like flight thing, and that's why and it's so limited on what she can do. A lot of times it feels like when you're playing Trish, it almost feels like they pre-canned a lot of her combos for you. Like they just built some shit for you, and then the flash with it, and then that's it. It doesn't really feel like you're actually getting to like have any wiggle room to work with a lot with that character. It's weird. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, to me it's just redundant to have two beginner characters, especially because, I mean, if you really think about it, it's like, okay, well, if you chose to play the campaign with Lady and Trish, you don't play Trish till the second half of that campaign. So then why would you play the second half of the campaign with a character that's like, not that, I don't know, why would you play with another beginner character? Yeah, to me it just seems backwards. I don't know. Like, I just really don't understand what they were trying to go for with this character. Let me just put it that way. I don't know what they were trying to go for. Like, what's her play style? What's going to make her stick out from Lady and Dante and Nero and Virgil by extension?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, again, like I said, I don't want to take too much away from her. You know, I don't want to discourage people from trying her out. She's a fun character for sure. It's just, you know, at the end of the day, when you really look at it, because, you know, their campaign runs parallel to Dante's and Nero's. One thing that's always been prevalent in DMC that you'll realize with Virgil is that he's the only character that gets a full campaign of him, regardless. Like, no matter what he's doing, he gets to play the game up and down, no issues. But when it comes to the trade-off that you have here, it's like, all right, well, Nero's supposed to be the beginner-friendly character that has, you know, easy to play difficult to master stuff. You play Lady. I mean, all she is really just, she's more of a range type character, and it's just a different way of playing. Honestly,
it offers something new.
Yeah, it offers something new, and then you have Dante over here, the most complex character in the game. It's hard to understand, really, just how to do much.
Hard to pick up, and it takes a god to master.
Yeah, and then, like, you know, it's like you're running through that, but then you have the trade-off here, or the other half of the campaign, where you're playing as Trish, and it's like a very easy, it's like an easier Dante, but an even easier Nero, and but less damage. Like, you know, all the work you do just doesn't amount to much of nothing. So it's kind of like, what's the point?
And, you know? Shallow, but flashy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't understand the place of this character, really. Like, I feel like that's cool that, I don't know, it almost makes me wonder if Lady being as interesting as she ended up being was a fucking mistake or just a side effect. I don't know.
Yeah.
The effort they put into Trish was just not great. It wasn't great. And Virgil, he really... I mean, they gave him some new things.
Yeah, let's talk about Son of Broken.
I mean, what is there to say other than they gave this man his own dedicated super meter? They call it concentration, and it just lets him be even more dumb. Like, It's funny because the big difference that they changed with Virgil is instead of you playing him like you would play DerpMayCry typically, you play Virgil like he is Virgil, and they reward you for it. So that means don't run. You walk everywhere. You don't run. And when when you're just like locked onto people and you're walking, you gain concentration meter. And in concentration, once it's full, I mean it modifies your moves. And when I mean modify your moves, I mean they start destroying shit more. Yeah, it's the motivation meter, dude. Like
it's like you have to treat it like if anybody's played Sekiro, exactly as Ashina said. If you hesitate, you die. You can't do that with Virgil in this game. You gotta be on point.
Like if you play him like the cool, collected dude that he is, that's how you're supposed to play him in this game. It's an interesting, it's a big difference. In fact, in 5, that's exactly what they end up doing anyway.
He does more damage the more you stay focused on characters too.
Yeah, and he also has like new exclusive moves that he gets opened up when he goes up to like level 1, level 2, level 3. Yeah, and then this is where they introduce Final Judgment cut form, which is basically the just die.
Yeah.
Ready to die. Motherfucker. Yeah. I like that. Yeah,
Yeah, you just told him to die.
Yeah. Ready to die. That's basically all it is. It's just, he wrecks space. This pretty much just like cements Virgil as pretty much being one of the most broken characters ever. I mean, he was the best.
And character. It's DMC3 Virgil too. Keep that in mind. It's DMC3 Virgil. It's not like a different version, like because everybody's got like updated new outfits and tweaks and stuff like that. This is still like the DMC3 Virgil, from the last game, but they just gave him a lot more tools.
Exactly, they just fleshed him out a bit more. I believe he also got like Trick Back, which is new.
Yeah. I think Trick Down as well. Like he can just go, like he can teleport up and then down or something like that.
I could have swore that was in 3, but I have to fire that back up.
Yeah, I don't recall, but I'm just thinking of moves off the top of my head.
Cause like they give this man a new direction with every new version you buy of him. They're like, okay, well now you can trick to the side, which is what they did with 5. So, but we'll get to that. Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, Virgil, man, like, he's just what he is, man. Fucking killing dudes.
The only character in the game that gets to run all the way through the entire campaign. No split off, trade off with characters, and on top of that, he works well with every enemy in the game. So there's really like no reason to even complain about.
I don't think he works well with all the enemies in the game. It's just the enemies don't work well with him.
Yeah, you're right. All right, Rorschach. All right.
I mean, let's be real. Like, let's keep it 200.
Come on. What's this man? Yeah. You think I'm locked in here with you? You're locked in here with me.
Hell yeah. Because I mean, dude, it's like he disrespects that game. It's like, and that's another thing that's funny. Virgil's inclusion just shows you how fucking poor the flow and it exacerbates all the worst issues of that game's like design itself, because you basically realize you are literally playing the same missions forward and backward, and you can definitely tell it's Virgil.
Oh yeah,
because you only got one character, so it makes it extreme. I'd argue that his campaign is even worse than any of the other characters, which is funny in a weird way. Because I said, it kind of showcases some of the worst aspects of the game.
You ain't wrong.
But unless there's anything else you want to add, I guess we'll go on to the reboot.
Yeah. Again, even before I don't have too much to say about reboot besides the demo that I played of vanilla. But I mean, I know you'll be able to take the floor on that one, and even with definitive, because I do plan on playing definitive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, dude. Like with this is probably gonna be the most contentious one, because I feel like even though I absolutely hated the demo for the original one, I did give Definitive Edition a shot, and they did actually correct quite a bit of the issues that I took with the original game. First off, like the whole color-coded enemy thing, like it's weird because it's like a half measure fix. It's not like they got rid of them entirely. It's just that now it doesn't like completely keep you from actually being able to do anything to them. So while it's like still like, hey, it's more effective to use like an angelic or whatever, demonic, whatever they call them in the game, even though it's more effective to use certain weapons on certain types of enemies, it's not like you can't like do damage to them, period, where it was like that in the original game, where it's just like your weapon would like straight up bounce off if you're using like the corresponding color, you know? That was stupid, but they fixed that. One of the things I did actually like about Reboot was the weapon selection. Yeah, I just appreciate the fact that it wasn't just gonna be another, hey, a sword, fist, gauntlet, footman weapon, you know, like, yeah, it has one, but there's actually, like, unique weapons again. That's one thing I can give praise for. It actually, like, had unique weapons that we've never seen in the series before. Albeit, they made them too wacky and weird in that game, and brought them kind of back down to, like, the level of easy to understand, you know, hard to master.
Yeah.
Like, Aquila is one of my favorite weapons. In fact, it's kind of like, I was kind of bummed out that Faust Hat was, like, a half-assed version of that weapon. Because, like...
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Faust Hat actually functions largely the same like Aquila, but you know how, like, you can draw in people with, like, the Faust Hat, for example, in 5? Well, Aquila, you could do that. It was it felt softer because they were just like ring blades, so you like throw it out and then you can like pull people in. It's a lot like faster to use. You can also do like the spin attack. It's like almost like an Ice Age, but you can actually move around like a top. That was useful. Yeah, it was a cool crowd clearing weapon. Because yeah, you can just basically spin around and like, or you not just yourself, but you're like throwing the weapon out and it like swings around kind of like boomerangish, but also kind of like almost like a yo-yo. Yeah, it was actually a really fun weapon to use. I really liked that one. The Scythe, while it wasn't anything particularly like to write home about, it was like Dante's means of actually having like kind of like a Nero and Virgil's kind of rising sun, kind of like, you know, rising cut type thing in midair. I thought that was really cool. And also it was really good for him to be able to pull people up from the ground level up to where he is. So it kind of functioned like a double bringer for Dante, which I liked.
Oh, okay.
Trying to remember what other... I know the guns weren't anything to write home about. I felt like that game probably had the dinkiest feeling guns out of any of the games, honestly. I really didn't like the firearms in DMC. I mean, the kablooey, they call it the kablooey, but it's the fucking shotgun.
Kablooey.
Yeah, that one actually sounded pretty dope. Like, it's not my favorite shotgun in the series, but it did have like a boom, like, you know, whereas like the other ones sounded more like, like, yeah, they had like this one went with more of a thud. It was a unique shotgun. I actually like the shotgun in that game, but yeah, most of the firearms in that game weren't very cool. I did like they did give him like a double bringer type thing where it's like he can pull himself towards people or you know, kick them away kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or pull himself towards them, vice versa. He did have that. I'm trying to remember what else there was. The style system wasn't anything... the style system's weird because it was completely broken in the original version, and while I wouldn't say that they broke or fixed it in the definitive edition, it was super weird because I played it on hardcore mode, which is more or less just like traditional. Like, it just means that the style meter drains at like the rate that it normally would at most of the games, and like operate the, you know, like the mainline games. So I didn't have any actual problem with it, but I did find like the options as far as like your old style moves, I guess for lack of better words, were just like executed in weird ways in that game. I didn't like the input execution for a lot of stuff, like some of the more complicated stuff. Like I either had to hot map it to a certain input, which was actually kind of cool. That's what that game did. Like it let you do like hot maps for certain attacks, because you wouldn't think that like pressing square and X at the same time would be hard, but it kind of fucking is in that game. I don't understand how what it is. It doesn't like really explain to you whether you need to like tap square and then X at the, you know, square first then X, you know, like in a or if you do it the other way or at the same time. It doesn't explain those kind of things to you. So like that's one thing I do kind of find frustrating. Like the inputs aren't very concise, but they do have a training mode, which, bless you, it was actually the first game to actually have introduced the void, or an actual training room, so I can't really complain too much. But I just never could get my hand or get the grasp on certain inputs for certain things, even after I finished the game like 3 times.
Oh, I see.
So it usually comes down to the ones that have simultaneous inputs. There are not a lot of them, but I wouldn't say the controls are like bad inherently. They're just, it does feel like walking on 2 left feet when you're first starting, because you're going to be like, oh, there's a dedicated launcher button. I can't just do the old school high time input and then just get it. So that's weird. But then you'll do like air combos, and then you're just like, oh, I don't have to style change to do aerial raid, you know?
Right.
That game actually has a lot of moves in it, surprisingly, that I've never seen show up in any other game afterwards, or even before that. Like, did you know there's a reverse rainstorm?
No, I didn't know that. How does that work exactly?
Literally, you jump in the air spinning around and just shooting everywhere. But, like, it operates like a high time, so you can carry people into the multiple targets in the air with you at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah, right? It's weird. Like, I don't know how to explain it. There's some stuff that's kind of cool in it, and some stuff that I'm just like, this is just weird and dumb. I don't know. Like, by the time I finished it, I was surprised at how little I actually really, really hated it. Like, I didn't actually hate it. So, like, the lock-on's completely screwed. I mean, you'll want to use it for sure. It still helps, but it does not function like the other games. It does not. I don't care what any goon says, oh, they fixed it by adding lock-on. Yes, they did, but it doesn't fix the entire problem. I can't, you have to, if you played every game up until this point, and this being like, as in like, hey, DMC Reboot is now like your 5th game or 6th game that you played in the series, there is no way you can tell me that lock-on functions like the other games. Even DMC 2 functions exactly the same as you expected. That's how weird it is. So like, lock-on does feel like an afterthought, but it isn't absolutely like the most terrible thing. It's gonna take you time to get used to it though. Cause like, Cause like, there's gonna be certain situations where it just doesn't feel like it's working for you, and other times where it is, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting, the level of custom is, I know I've been talking a lot about things not inherently tied to the combat system, but things that can affect the combat system. So like, for example, one of the modes in it, this game has a ton of modes, right? And like, one of the things that this game has is like modifiers, as you see in other games. And I think this is one of the biggest shame in all of the entire DerpMayCry series, how like people hate this one so much that like they neglected to mention that this one actually had some cool features that needed to be carried over into future games. For example, this is actually the game that introduces Gods Must Die difficulty, which is higher than fucking anything that the series has seen so far. It's higher than anything we've seen. Like, because Gods Must Die, you have to remember, that was a PC exclusive mod for DMC4, you know? In terms of difficulty, that's where it got its origins, Gods Must Die mode. And then it became an official thing as far as like an official release goes with Definitive Edition. So you have not only like a difficulty higher than Dante Must Die mode, but you also have modifiers where it's like you can play the game in different ways. Like you can't kill enemies or do any damage unless you hit S rank minimum. So like they call that like the must style modifier. So that's kind of interesting. Like, or you can what was it? Hardcore mode. Obviously, I said that's considered a mod, but it's like to make the style system kind of operate like the older games rules.
Yeah. I see.
Or you can do God, there was like quite a few of them, man. Like, I mean, I'm telling you, there was like a nice little list of them that I remember seeing when you pull up the menu. In fact, I can go ahead and try to see if I can pull some of that up right now for us, because it was really wild how much of a customization factor that I wasn't expecting to be put into the Definitive Edition in proper, you know.
I'm trying to think. Would you consider it closer to the customization found in like games like God Hand or maybe even Bayonetta?
Like, I guess you would say the best comparison I could think of would be something like Skulls or something like that in like Halo, where it's like you can change like the way you play, like in a way, like modifiers, like I'm trying to think of what other games, because there's like plenty of other games that's done this. I know for a fact, like other games have had like these kind of like soft mods for the game where it'll like change the way you play the game. Like, you know, you can't like it'll disable all items or something like that, like healing items in the game. So like you have to rely on like buying them from the shop now. Those kind of type things.
I see.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that itself is in DMC Definitive Edition, but actually no, Gods Must Die mode, I forgot. That one is actually exactly that. They remove all green orbs from the game, and you can't use items anymore. Yeah, it's wild. You can't use items, and they just replace all healing items with like red orbs. And if I recall, enemies are also just spawn in Devil Trigger in that mode, if I recall.
Yeah.
So like, I think those are kind of the like interesting modes that they should have carried into, because they're considered modifiers, meaning you can actually apply that to like easy difficulties like human or something like that. So I feel like having more customizable difficulty levels in DerpMayCry might go a long way to actually like having even more replayability, because I'll say this, the Dante Must Die modes across the games have usually not been like the best balanced modes all the time. Like, I won't necessarily say that one has issues for sure, but one actually feels like it was balanced with Dante Must Die mode first, and then they were like tweaking the numbers down to make it like normal mode, you know what I'm saying, and hard mode and stuff like that. Whereas the other games after that, you can feel like they were putting up the dials, especially once you get to 3, where there's certain sections in that game where, like Arkham, you're just like, dude, this whole game, yeah, there's some hard parts in this game, but this boss was clearly not built with this difficulty in mind. Like, he can one-shot you with this ridiculous move kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just giving you some examples of like how like difficulty levels was always like a cool selling point and like a good incentive for replaying these DerpMayCry games. But Definitive Edition took an interesting approach of actually allowing people to like kind of create their own difficulty levels, as well as like give themselves like the most ridiculous possible challenge they can if they choose to. So like, yeah, man, I feel like this game in particular, while they did change a lot of stuff that I wasn't too particularly a fan of as far as like combat goes, I can't say that it's boring. I've never found myself bored playing the game, I'll say that. Whereas like I actually actively despised every second of playing like DMC2, because any potential in that game was just a lead on to some bull and a waste of your time. This game actually felt like there was something there. When if something caught your interest, there would be something there for you, I feel like. And the stages are never like a huge issue. If anything, I would say the stages may or may not be a highlight. I'll say this, the stages are never offensive. They never offended me, the stage design and like the combat arenas. Enemies also tended to be pretty varied for the most part. Not always interesting, but varied. So you could take that for what you will. I wouldn't actually consider any of the enemies in that game particularly annoying. So that I guess that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, it's always a good thing when you don't have to face, when you're playing a hack and slash or beat 'em up and there's an enemy and there's no enemy that's annoying. That's always a good thing.
But bosses, man, dude, they don't suck, but they're boring, dude. I do not. I will say that I will give them that much, dude. I do not think like them bosses are that great in that game. Not compared to like the stuff we started getting prior to that. I would argue that if Devil May Cry 2 did not exist, this would actually have the weakest boss lineup in the entire series, and that's no cap.
Man,
they're just not they're just not interesting. They're not a highlight of the game, and I kind of find that somewhat disappointing, because even Virgil is pretty bland, like as a boss fight, and I feel like that's like probably like my gauge right there. I was like, well, if you couldn't make all these other boss fights good, there's no way this Virgil fight's gonna be good. And guess what? It really wasn't. And yeah, I think that's sad, because the encounters are actually all right. So
yeah, it's unfortunate.
So yeah, what a mixed bag of a game, dude. Like, I, honestly, walking away from it, I can't say I hated it or anything like that. Did we need this game? Absolutely not. Am I mad that I played it? No, because now I actually have a good benchmark for what truly are a bore of, like, hack and slash games. Like, I can't say, like, because, you know, when me and you first met, a little off topic, but when me and you first met, we were talking about God of War, and I didn't really, like, care much for the series. Kind of thought it was a little unga bunga for the hack and slash genre, but guess what? You just literally have to play stuff worse sometimes, like Devil May Cry 2, or replay Devil May Cry 2 in this case, to really gain some perspective on what is actually shit.
Yeah.
You know, you really have to play some really bottom of the barrel stuff to like really appreciate like what the game. Because when a game's doing everything right, all you can see is like the things you don't really like. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
But in this case, and especially in DMC2's case, like that was just so fucking bad that there was just all Definitive Edition has to do is just do slightly better than that. They came out it came out the gate fucking up, because I mean the 30 FPS Devil May Cry game, no, that ain't happening. So,
was that even heard of?
No, you get that shit out of my face. But they fixed that, and they actually went out of their way and had, I mean, the fact that they had like a couple 100-page changelog that they actually publicly posted that you could download, like it was the PDF file. I'm sure you can find it somewhere, but they had like a changelog, dude. This thing was long, and seeing how long it was just goes to show me that they did actually care to fix it. and they weren't actively striving to make a crappy game that was gonna piss us off. It was just sometimes taking orders suck, dude. And unfortunately, Keiji Inafune has some really bad instructions that they just had to follow. And they had to take the brunt for it. But that's a whole nother can of worms. But owning up to it was a good thing, though. I think actions speak louder than words. You can talk all the shit you want, but if you don't fix it, man, that's where I draw the line.
Yeah. Sorry.
But yeah, like, Definitive Edition, not terrible. DMC2 still exists. Know what a bad game is, people.
Yep.
Now, DMC5, though.
Let's talk about, I think what a lot of us actually came here for.
I mean, I would say that DMC5, I mean, Wild 3 might be the most well-told story. Overall, just had like a great package to it. 5, man. I think 5, the only reason it beats 3 now, even with its Switch version, is simply for the sheer variety, dude. There's too many characters in this game that playable. There's too many different play styles, and a lot of the baseline features you expect from a Devil May Cry game for this not to clearly be the best Devil May Cry game.
Yeah.
Like, that's just me being objective about it. I'm like, I mean, I love 3 still to this day, but it's hard to argue when you got, 4 playable characters, man. And so much, like, consistency, too. Like, it's the most well-balanced game, or I would argue it's by far the most well-balanced game out of the entire series in terms of, like, difficulty scaling and everything. Like, well, I would say the easiest difficulty is a little condescending to the point where it's like, why does this even exist, dude? Like, human mode, these things aren't even fighting back, so it's like, just have Devil Hunter mode. I think it's probably got the most disrespectful easy mode, but I do think, like, the difficulty scaling is pretty solid because, dude, the jump between very hard and Dante Must Die mode in 3 is fucking ludicrous. Even, like, the jump from normal to hard in, like, the original Devil May Cry, and then going into, like, DMD and stuff, it's out of control. This one is, like, the one where it feels the most natural, I felt like, of all of them. Yes, DMD is pretty hard, but I feel like the game does properly prepare you now, like, for that challenge. You get what I'm saying? And it feels like at this point in time, too, with the games, we're already 5 games deep into it, this being the 6th one. They should hopefully have a better understanding of how, like, they should scale this stuff up. Because by the last difficulty level, we get to a mode that's not DMD, but it's a one-hit kill mode, you know what I'm saying? But it's very doable the way that they set it up, because you're like, oh, well, I get to get 3 tries per mission. I get 3 lives basically every mission. So, like, they really have a lot more thoughtful design, I feel like, as a whole when it comes to going forward with it. Now, combat-wise, I mean...
Yeah, pretty much everything that you thought you wanted with the character in the previous game, they actually fulfilled that. Nero's probably one of the best aspects of DMC because he is exactly the way he used to play, and then some. It's like he's a dream to play. I mean, you're over here flipping out that they got rid of his, Devil Bringer and stuff. But man, those Devil Breakers though, oh boy, I tell you, man, that's got to be some of the most fun gameplay I've ever had in a while. I mean, it's ridiculous, like what all these Devil Breakers can do. Granted, okay, some of them are better than others, but honestly, for the most part, all of them are pretty fun in their own right. Like,
I think that's important. That's a very important distinction. Are they actually fun to use? I would say the base game ones are, and I would say maybe about 2, like maybe like 2 of them from like the DLC ones are kind of fun. or like actually good, but like yeah, the rest of them are the rest of the DLC ones are kind of bunk, dude. Like Monkey Business was meant to be a gag. What I don't get is things like Pasta Breaker, where it's the only
I was gonna bring that one up next.
Yeah, it's like it's obviously not meant for damage, but it's also just like the only way you can swap between or rotate between breakers. But I'm like, you do realize functionally this literally makes no sense. Because like if I want to actually be able to switch them, I have to still destroy it, which then completely shuts down my ability to actually use it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, to me, it just seems like, is this a gag weapon, or is this like actually like the actual function of this thing is broken? Like, what they are saying that it does, it doesn't actually do it correctly. I don't get it. Like, yeah, I hated that weapon.
It's redundant. I mean, all it does is help Nero eat pasta, as it says. It doesn't offer any type of. It really doesn't really offer anything else, gameplay wise.
Yeah, which is a
like,
big gameplay thing. Like I said, I can't tell if it's like broken or if it's just supposed to be a gag. It's hard to tell because I'm like, it's clearly rotating my weapons out, but like, how can I use them if it doesn't ever let me use them unless I destroy Pasta Breaker? But if I destroy this, then I can't swap weapons anymore. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's a stupid fucking weapon, dude. Like, I really was mad about that. The massage arm thing, I mean, that's funny. Like, it's funny, but it also has like
sweet surrender. That's what it's called.
Has healing benefits. Has now the Gerbera, even though that's kind of redundant, it is also kind of cool and useful in its own way. The GP1 version of it, where you can like go downwards or upwards or whatever. I thought that was kind of neat.
Because what is it? The original Gerbera, it's more of a horizontal. When you press it, it's more of a horizontal pop or
just get more mobility options with the DLC version and a different color laser beam.
Yeah, I'm just saying that as far as like whenever you're moving and hitting the original Gerbera, it's more of a horizontal pop in one way, whereas like with the GBO1 DLC version, it's a vertical horizontal, or it's a vertical up and down.
But you can also go horizontal though.
Yeah, you can, but I'm just saying like normally when you just hit it like in a neutral standpoint, it'll just pop you up or down. Whereas with the regular, it just hits people away.
I don't know. Mega Buster wasn't that cool. Like, I mean, it's novel.
Yeah,
it's fun, but it's not.
It's fun for what it is, but I mean, but that's why I keep saying it's like, some of these might seem. I mean, besides Pasta Breaker, like a lot of them might seem like it might seem like they're kind of like whatever, but they're all fun.
Yeah, I mean, the ones in the base game are at least fine for what they are. Like, I like all the ones in the base game.
Yeah, like even the one you start out with, the electric one, I forget.
Overture?
That
Overture's
one.
always
cool. Overture. Yeah, that one's always a fun one. The only honestly the only one. I mean, I have fun with it, but the only one that just throws me off a lot is Tomboy, because I mean it's supposed to give you damage boost, but one of the thing I don't like about it, and I'm sure there's a lot of people, is just the fact that you can't exactly like you're kind of stunted in terms of movement. It's like you can only kind of start hitting things in one direction. There's not a whole lot of control, and I guess that's obviously the idea or the caveat is that it's so much power that it's hard to control.
I mean, like I said, every weapon kind of like in the Devil Breakers kind of lineup is pretty useful. They're interesting, and I kind of hope they bring it back. I mean, they'll definitely bring some element of it back. I'm just kind of concerned whether like what direction they're gonna take with it, because I know like it being a finite thing versus like it being like a infinite use, you just swap between them type thing. It was really contentious. Even now, I still don't know exactly how I feel about that, but I don't say that I didn't like how it was implemented in the game. I'm just simply saying though, like, I know some people just simply didn't like the fact that you couldn't switch between them. I wouldn't say it's broken by design, because I don't think it was busted or made it unfun in the game or anything, that it was finite. But yeah, I think it...
Yeah. I can see that. I mean, definitely, I'm kind of, I guess I'm indifferent about it, but I can definitely empathize and see, like, yeah, it would be nice to be able to switch between your devil breakers and, you know, use certain ones first instead of the other. But, you know, of course, that's why they offer.
Well, you can sequence them, but like I'm saying, like actually like scroll through them.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm just saying, like, I think how they did it, I'm indifferent about it. Like, if they add it, I'm more than happy to see that. If they don't, it doesn't bother me. But I guess I can kind of see it as, like, I kind of see why they did it the way they did. It was just so, I think what they were looking for was for you to get as much appreciation, I guess, out of using it, or trying to use it as much as you can before you went on to the next devil breaker. Since, you know, I'm a firm believer, obviously, like, each one of them has their use, and I don't think anyone besides obviously a few DLC ones are particularly bad to use at all.
But it brings up it brings up like a balancing issue too, like I said just a second ago, where it's like, well, at what point do they need to actually sit down and rebalance this feature if they chose to bring it back? Because, you know, people have found ways of just exploiting it by blowing them up and doing massive damage. Like, I don't know. There's no clear-cut solution to it. That's why I'm kind of wondering, like, what approach they would want to take from there on out. Because it's like, well, people are just going to exploit blowing it up because it does a lot of damage, or not. You know, like, or they play super conservative and just never want to use different ones because they're just like, well, I don't want to break it, or the fact. I mean, I'm saying there's no easy solution.
There's no easy solution. On top of that, it's kind of, I guess it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I guess it doesn't really matter how they try to do it, because, I mean, by the end of the game, you get Devil Bringer back. So, I mean, that just adds a whole nother layer of, you know, brokenness to it.
No, well, I'm talking about the breakers themselves, not the bringer.
Yeah.
Because the breakers themselves actually affect, like, that is his only way of actually getting new weapons in a way in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is like the equivalent of Dante being like, okay, well, I want to use Ifrit now. Well, guess I gotta go ahead and break this Alistair until I find another one. Like, that'd be messed up, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I kind of get where people's logic is, because I'm like, well, I can't say I agree or disagree with it. I will say that I kind of get that line of logic where they're coming from, because, yeah, it's kind of absurd. Like, what do you want me to do, man?
Right.
Yeah, like, what do you want me to play with these things or not? I mean, because Dante, probably his biggest crime is the nostalgia pandering. There's really not enough unique weapons now, aside from Cavalier Angelo. Or not Cavalier Angelo, it's just Cavalier. But yeah, and then, like, the variations on Cerberus is, you know, you get, like, the bow staff and then the tri-chucks.
Yeah.
Those are cool.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. I am not getting mad about my favorite DerpMayCry weapon coming back in the series. What I am saying, though, coming from Definitive Edition and 4, which, albeit both of them games had their own problems, but they both had taken bold chances with trying new weapons and stuff like that. 5 does not do that. 5 plays it so safe when it comes to Dante's armament. And I felt like, while Dante was the most fun to play in this game, yeah, there's a part of me that's kind of like, damn, dude, maybe y'all should have just, like, released some DLC pack with, like, all these older weapons, all these fucking weird old weapons, and, like, let people play with those, at least. Because the way it is right now, I kind of feel like I could see where that would be disappointing for a lot of people that, like, put time into 4 or Definitive Edition and wanted to see, like, these more interesting weapons come back. Especially because, like I said, Faust Hat, I feel like Faust Hat, while it borrows a lot from Aquila, it's also, like, unique enough to be its own damn thing, so why not bring Aquila back as well? It's weird. Like, I have very mixed feelings about it. Same with Lucifer. weird ass weapon, but then you just kind of like threw some of its moves into the Devil Sword Sparta.
Yeah.
You know, with the so it's very strange how they handled that. I feel like
yeah, when that sword's equipped, when you're in Devil Trigger, it changes some of the attributes.
Like I mean, when you have, I mean, because one thing that's kind of interesting is, so if you go into Devil Trigger mode and you have sort of Devil Sword Dante, sorry, when you have it equipped, if you put it on, say, Trickster, right? Normally, you just get 2 jumps, but now with Devil Sword Dante, you'll get triple jump. You know, I think the same goes for his dashing, his air dash.
You get
you get 2, and the little, you know, the energy blades or weapons, they actually do change with each style that you go into when you're in Devil Trigger mode. Like if you're in Gunslinger, the energy blades will actually fire at enemies, and if you're in Royal Guard, they'll defend if you don't have a defense up. You know, a bunch of interesting stuff like that.
Yeah, man. I think, yeah, for sure, because they definitely had like a weird issue with like weapons kind of having weird overlaps as well in 5 with Dante, because you notice how he has like Rebellion at the beginning, Devil Sword Sparta, and the actual Sparta Sword, or Devil Sword Dante, and the Sparta Sword. I kind of wish that they made them a little different, at least then, at that point. Well, like,
offered something different.
Like some kind of perk, or, you know, there's just some small nuance that can be, that differentiates them.
Yeah, there's like a pro and a con to it, or something. Like, say, like, you use Devil Sword Sparta, which I guess, if you trace it back to the first game, if you had that sword equipped, you couldn't use your second jump. So it's like if they added something neat, like you had it in this game 5, you lose the second jump option, but you get more, you do more damage to enemies, you know, more power.
Well, you get your Devil Trigger damage through just without Devil Triggering. That was the perk for the original sword. Plus, why didn't they play with the shape shifting more? In fact, if anything, that sword should have had more uniqueness to it with this game, because they could have made it transform a lot more. Like, he still don't have like really a scythe weapon, and that's why I was saying, like, you know, in Definitive Edition, or DM whatever, the reboot, you know, he had like an aerial move where he can use that scythe and pull people up from the ground. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, DerpMayCry has a problem with like not always wanting to build shit off of old ideas. Sometimes they just willing to throw some shit out like entirely and just never rework it or like anything like that, which I find just so weird. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Because that's another thing too. This game borrows so many, tries to recycle or salvage a lot of elements from Reboot, because clearly this is like the timeline they want to go with. I can't say I disagree with it, but but that said, they're clearly willing to pilfer a lot of things from Reboot and bring it into the mainline series. Why not bring all the good shit?
Yeah.
You know, and that includes like what you're saying right now, like with that, with certain weapons and stuff like that, or abilities. So V, V's interesting. Like, I'll say this, he doesn't overstay his welcome because he's only in like 5 missions, so I can't say that I hated his playstyle, but I also can't say I loved it either. But yeah, I mean,
about the same way. I think V, for what he offers in the series, it's good. You know, like it's a good pace breaker. It's nice to see something a little different. As to, you know, for people, I guess, kind of like me, and even you, it's like, you know, some of us that want to try and reach that, unlock everything, you know, 100% the game and stuff like that. There's points where I'm just kind of like, I'm kind of like over or done with V. Like, I just want to do the rest of it, because I know there's a mission against the Needhog where And when you play it on DMD mode, yeah, it can get pretty tough. But I mean, I will say at least ranking with V is relatively it's not hard at all. It's pretty easy. Like the game's pretty lenient and tolerant of how you have to play with V because it's a different play style. Yeah. But I'll get into that in a second. Now, you want to just tell him exactly how he plays? Or?
Oh, I mean, he's just a summoner, and he's all about that poetry slam, dude. Like, I mean, that's pretty much the key to victory, dude. Just throw monsters out, press some buttons, and just poetry slam. I mean, that's how I played through it, even on DMD, all the way through. Like, I don't know, he was the character I had the least amount of issues playing with. I was like, man, this character's strategies don't change whatsoever. Like, I can't tell if I'm playing him well or if I'm just like, I don't know, dude. Like, to be completely honest with you, I don't know, because it's like, I'm sitting there, like, the only thing that I will say about V that I had to do was I had to change my button configurations for this character, because I feel like playing just the default button setup with him, no, you ain't gonna get, no, if you put, I'm telling y'all, some pro tips, you put Griffin on one of your shoulder buttons, dude, you will thank me, because you will have access, you will have your hands so much freed up for so much more stuff, dude. It's crazy. Like, once I did that, like, I felt like he felt very fluid to play. But yeah, I never really had any problems playing this character. I feel like you pretty much smashing buttons and doing different combinations for the more powerful moves, like that Griffin orb ball thing, the full suite. I mean, dude, with that and like the shadow just doing dude, just, I mean, seriously, just mash buttons, dude, with that character, and you will be fine. And then when you get Nightmare, summon him, and he will kill things. Like,
yeah,
to me, if somebody was like, "V's got a learning curve," word, like, I'm not gonna even disagree with that, but I'm gonna be like, word, you know what I'm saying? Because I didn't know he does. Like, I'm like, I beat DMD with this dude, like, didn't seem that hard. I mean, yeah, he might have some moments of like where it's like it's a little close quarters, so it might be a little rough getting around. You might just have to stay a little bit more mobile, but yeah, for the most part, not really, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, he's not like difficult to play, or especially, like I said, it's lenient on how you can get S rank on missions. But I have noticed, especially on DMD mode, there has been like, it's small, but it's like you can still work around it. But I've noticed like some issues, I guess, where you're playing against some of the enemies when they go into their devil trigger, and even bosses,
or if they manage to, yeah,
they can, like, because it's like there's points in the game where obviously you have to kind of keep up with where your summons are at, because like if they're out there too long, they'll end up just doing like the guys will do like a one shot and put them indisposed for a little bit, while you have to sit there and try to, they'll stalemate them, because like one of the issues is when both characters are stalemated, you have no mobility options. Like, there's just nothing you can do to avoid certain hits besides hopefully a well-timed jump.
Hey man, still got iframes though. You know what I'm saying? If you lost some iframes, you'd be in real big trouble. So
yeah,
totally. Like, I don't know, V, I didn't think he was like particularly bad, but I mean, I'm not gonna be particularly like jazzed if he comes back either. I'm not gonna be like, he's obviously not going to just come back, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's one of them characters where I'm just like, yeah, it was fun, I guess, while he was there, but I'm not really looking forward to him coming back. He's not a character where I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, totally bring him back. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, because I honestly would rather just have like his play style or something condensed into like a style for Virgil.
Yeah, something like that at least.
Like, I think that'd be, I don't know, fucking call it like Summoner Fee or something. I don't know. Pimp Kane.
Yeah. The Superfly V or something. Super V.
Yeah, that's something. Poetry slam.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like I said, it's just that's kind of it, really. To be, I mean, you know.
Yeah, Virgil's largely the same. I mean, he's just broke. I mean,
Yeah,
they gave
I mean,
him,
you know.
they gave him, like, instead of Force Edge, they gave him Mirage Force Edge or whatever. I mean, he got Air Stinger. He's got Side Trick now. He got Side Dodges now, dude. Like, I'm just saying.
Yeah, which is you know.
Took only,
It's already.
Took only 4 games, but you know. 3-4 games, but yeah, he finally got side dodges. He's gotten, what else? Oh yeah, his sword thing, like the sword drops, they actually freeze people for, like, slow down time around them, so it gives you enough time to do, like, real impact, which is like his uppercut. You can do like a fully charged version of that now. Judgment Cut's just completely. Yeah, just like the simple Judgment Cut is just broken now. Like, just spamming that is just... I mean, it literally shreds bosses. Like, it's kind of crazy. Like, I tried it on, like, what was it? Artemis? Yeah, it was Artemis, the flying one. Yeah, dude, I tried on that boss, and I was just like, oh my god, where's this boss health going? Put on Devil Trigger, and it's just like, oh my god, where is this boss's health going? You know,
no competition.
It's silly. It's so silly. Like, I don't know.
I've seen a lot of gameplay of Virgil. I haven't bought him yet.
Word.
You know, but I'm probably just gonna go ahead and do it.
No, he's fucking strong, dude. Like, I don't know. I haven't put a lot of time into him, but I'm just kind of like, dude. If what little I know of how to play this character is working right now, what is gonna happen once I put some actual time into this and actually figure out, like, more nuances? Because, like, this character is dumb, like, super dumb. That said, the Judgment Cut looks pretty cool in this game, or the final Judgment Cut. It does look cool. Like, it's got like a glass shattering effect and stuff, like it does in the final boss fight. So that's pretty cool.
That's deep, yeah.
Yeah, like.
Does he also get that one move where he just like, what is it? It's like a, I don't know. It's kind of like, you know, in the base game when you're actually fighting against him as the final boss, he gets like a Yamato Stinger and just throws you aside. Does he actually get that as something to play with or not?
Oh no, he gets an aerial Stinger though.
Oh really? Okay.
With Mirage Force Edge, yeah, he gets an aerial Stinger, and oh yeah, they gave him Doppelganger straight up now.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot they did do that.
Yeah, he just straight up has Doppelganger now, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, like I said, I didn't get to spend a terrible amount of time with him, but I do want to go back and do it again and mess around with him some more. But yeah, he's extremely fun and does have new stuff in it. Like, he definitely has more new stuff going on in him for him. I feel like the jump between 3 Virgil and 4 Virgil wasn't as vast as like the 3 Virgil to like 5 Virgil.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess some people would say, like, you know, that 4 Virgil introduced, like, concentration and all that, but, like, 5 Virgil is actually trying to do something new with him, I feel like. Trying to. Even if they gave him Beowulf again.
I mean, that's all we can ask for, right? Just as long as they're trying to do something different.
Oh, I can't believe I forgot this detail with Virgil, dude. Dude, they gave him back the best move ever, dude.
Which one was that one?
Kick 13. He has the Kick 13 combo with Beowulf now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and for those that don't know what Kick 13 is and why that shit is funny to me, dude, that is like what destroys Virgil in that game, dude. Like, Ifrit has like, Ifrit doesn't get like a Stinger type move, he gets like this kick move. It's called Kick 13, but when you are in Devil Trigger, he does like this full-blown ass combo that does like 4 or 5 hits or something. He gets that in this game now. So like, yeah, I thought that was really, really sick that they gave him Kick 13. That combo string with Beowulf. So that's something that's new. I definitely noticed that was new. I was like, I don't think I've seen him do this in the other versions. Like, no,
Wait, is that the one where he just like does like a flurry of kicks and like does all the this flurry of roundhouses and stuff?
Yeah, they actually call it Kick 13 in this one. It's like like.
Well, because I think doesn't he have it in 4? But he had it in 4 as well.
Did he?
Yeah, I think he did. They might have called. I don't know if it was Kick 13 or
something else, but I mean, I remember. I know what you're talking about. I think they ended it differently in 5 compared to 4. They might have a different way of which they're doing it, but I think it's the same thing.
I mean, because I saw that and I was like, "Yo, man, finally!"
Yeah. Either way, it's exciting. It's still badass to see. But yeah, I'll try to fact check myself on that and see if they actually do have it.
Yeah, because apparently, okay, so I haven't looked it up. Apparently, it's supposed to resemble. It says that Virgil, in Special Edition, Virgil uses a series of kicks that belongs to his brother's own weapons, but the hind claws and light create the damage. In DerpMayCry 5, he regains Kick 13 along with the return of Rising Sun if the button is held down.
Oh, okay.
I see. All right. Now it's all adding together.
Because the thing is, too, mind you, too, Kick 13, like, he also never had that actual move.
Yeah.
Like, just
it wasn't exactly his.
No, I'm saying, like, the actual kick from, like, the first DerpMayCry. He never actually had that until, like, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I noticed it, particularly in 5, might have forgotten in 4. Because I was like, no, that's definitely that fucking move. Like, he does that spin kick, and then it's like, if you're in Devil Trigger, he's like, bam, 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 bam. Like, it's just like,
yeah.
This shit's so cool, dude. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. Like, anything else to add to that, dude?
Did you want to stop right here for now? Or?
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because they're popping fireworks, and, I didn't want it to,
Oh, it's already been booming here, dog.
Oh, it has? Oh, I ain't even heard it.
That's funny. No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. Did you hear any on my end or not?
Nah.
Okay, well, that's good then.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, it could either be fireworks or gunshots. I don't know, one or the other. But
one of the two, yeah.
The same shit. Some people call them fireworks. Some people call them dirty fireworks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.